So about a week ago, I did a video where we did an entire home network upgrade for one of my friends using the TP-Link Omada ecosystem. I'll link that video up here if you want to check it out, but basically it was just us installing the system and configuring it, all the basics, so nothing really too crazy. But the gist of it is that we have 4 devices in our Omada home network setup. The OC200 controller, we have a router / firewall, we have one of their 10-port switches, and a wireless access point. So essentially the basics for a somewhat robust home network setup. So in that video, we went over just setting it up and the basics, but we didn't really dive into the Omada ecosystem as a whole and what you can do in it. So that's what I want to cover here. I do have some thoughts on it, some positive and some negative, so let's jump into it. So if you don't know what TP-Link's Omada line is, what it is essentially TP-Link's venture into the power user home network world as well as the corporate network world. So it's a line of devices that tie into an ecosystem that make it extremely easy to communicate with all your devices, whether that's 1 or 2 or hundreds. And this is directly competing with the most popular line that's similar to that in Ubiquiti's Unify. So let's dive into it. Right off the bat, their main GUI looks strikingly similar to Unify's, and it's not really a bad thing. I mean, it's clean, it's miles better than most network GUIs you see on routers today. So here it is. Straight from the start, you get a generic kind of dashboard showing, a whole bunch of stats about your network. One cool thing is that for these tabs, as you scroll through, giving you access about your network, clients on your network, you can actually add your own tab, which is pretty cool. So if I just call this custom, go to it, there's nothing on there. You're over here to settings, and then you can kind of scroll through their lists of widgets and pick what you want to see. So for example, maybe I just want to see, I don't know, the traffic activities. I want to see the top devices, well, not top device, most active clients maybe, longest client uptime, and if they're using 2.4 or 5 gigahertz. Okay. And here's our custom dashboard. You can kind of slide things around as you see fit. Not something that's going to make or break this software by any means, but it's definitely a cool feature to have if you're a network nerd that likes to dive into stats like this. So as we go through, they give you more kind of default pages. Here's your statistics. You can look at performance, the amount of users, the percentage of the CPU on your devices, how much traffic is going through, generic stats, switch statistics. So this is the 10-port switch that we have. You can get stats about that specifically. You can narrow it down by date range if you want. Speed test statistics, you can run these and kind of get a speed test, and if you don't want to go and do it in your browser, you can do it directly through here. Map is pretty cool. It shows you, So here you can see we have the internet, we have the WAN, which is on our router. From the router, we go into a switch. From the switch, we are going to the Omada controller, to the access point, and to a bunch of clients specifically. And then here you can see the client group connecting to our access point. So it's pretty cool, giving you a layout of your network. Just more stuff to look at, more statistics. Seeing it laid out like this is pretty cool. You can also switch to a map view, and you can upload your own map. I assume your house doesn't look like this. If it does, okay, that's convenient. But I believe you can upload your own kind of schematic and place these devices. So this is our router, and say it's actually over here. You can put it there. This is our access point. Maybe it's in this room over here, and maybe we have something else over here. So again, it's the main point of this was, like I said, power users and businesses. So these are features that a lot of businesses would actually like and use. The statistics, a lot of power users would like as well. So this isn't really designed for someone who just wants a basic network to plug and play and just go. But I mean, you can use it as that. It's easy to set up, as we saw in the other video, but a lot of these statistics are way over the top for somebody who just wants a basic network. Let's go into devices. Here you can see which physical devices you have in your Omada ecosystem. So this is our, this isn't our clients, this is our actual devices. So here's our router, here is our switch, and here is our access point. And like I showed in the other video, if you buy a piece of hardware from the Omada line and plug it into your network, it will automatically be detected here, and you can kind of ingest it into your ecosystem with one click. And that's a really awesome feature of the whole Omada ecosystem in general, is its ability to add and remove devices seamlessly. From here, you can kind of go into each of them specifically and adjust settings. So for example, on our access point, just click on it. You can go in, look at details, clients that are on that device, any configurations you want to change on there. All of that is easy access. You don't have to worry about going to each device's own specific GUI using its specific IP address. Everything's configurable and accessible in one spot. Clients, this is just a basic list of all your clients, how they're connected, any activity that's going on, and if you want to reconnect them or block them, you can do that with one click from this page. Insight, just a bit more information broken down by clients. You can kind of scroll through here and see what's going on. More stuff. Logs, boring, but yes, this is where logs are. Now for the main part I wanted to get to. We covered all the pretty visuals and whatnot. This is where I want to get into the settings and the meat of what you can do and configure on your home network. So we'll start at the top, site configuration. Now you can see at the top we're in default site. So like I said, this is for businesses where they might have multiple sites and you want certain devices broken down by different physical sites. In our case, we're just using this as a home, so we really don't mess with this at all. There's some settings down here that you can adjust. If you want to turn the LEDs off on your devices, you can do that. That's a pretty cool feature that I think is a little underrated. Maybe you have some of these devices in places where you don't want a flashing light or any light at all because you're a vampire or something, I don't know. Wired networks. Okay, 2 tabs, internet and LAN. Let's talk about internet first. So this is where you can specify your interaction with the WAN. So your internet coming into your network. Now, the router we have actually has the ability to have 4 different physical WAN connections coming in. Right now, obviously, we're only using one because this is a home network. You often don't have more than one. But if we wanted to add more, we can add up to 4 WANs and have 4 different ISP connections coming in or connections from other sites, which is really convenient for businesses that want this feature. For a home user, not so much, but just know that it's there. LANs. So this is where you are going to specify any LANs that you want created within your network. So by default, it comes with your main one. This is it, VLAN 1, your standard regular LAN. I know a lot of people ask about VLANs. VLANs are a hot topic today with so many IoT devices in your house and so many things connected to the internet. You want those separated, so a lot of people are wanting easy access to VLANs, and let's talk about how you do that. So in here, you can just create a new LAN. They give you the option if it's an interface or a specific VLAN. I don't like using this specific VLAN. I know that seems counterintuitive to what I just mentioned, but I like creating it as an interface. I feel like I get more control over it that way. So I create it as an interface, and say, for example, we want this to be the IoT network for all of our IoT stuff. So you give it a name, and then you specify, which interface you want this running on. We want this on the main LAN port. If you look at our configuration video, we just have this LAN port running to the switch, which is running to our access point and other devices. So running on this LAN switch is perfectly fine, or port. VLAN tag, whatever you want it to be between 1 and 40 or 4090. Let's call this one 69. Subnet, just give it whatever you want. I like the 10 subnet, so 10.0.69.1. We will do /24, update DHCP range. So this is going to say, what range do we want to actually hand out IP addresses from the DHCP server. I like to start this at 10, which gives me, 8 or so static IPs I can assign to specific devices if I want to do that in the future. You don't have to do that. You can just leave it as default. All this stuff, you can leave as default. Click Save. There we go. We have a new IoT interface using VLAN 69 with this specific subnet. So we'll talk about how to use that in a second. For my use case, I want to be able to access this through our Wi-Fi access point. So go into Wi-Fi networks or wireless networks. Here you can see we already have our main network as well as a guest network we set up. We're just going to create our own, create new wireless network. SSID, we'll call this IoT network, not a guest, a security key. Okay, under advanced settings, you're going to go in and say, yes, we are using a VLAN and we are going to use VLAN 69. Click apply, and you can see we have our network created on VLAN 69, basically set up and ready to go. There is one thing I want to mention before we actually connect to that. On a lot of systems, including pfSense, when you create a new VLAN, by default, it is completely blocked off from everything, and you have to specifically go in and allow what communications you want on that network. This one is the opposite. When you create a new interface, it's open to everything. So, for example, I'll do that right now. Let's connect directly to our new IoT network. And you can see we have a 10.0.69 IP address. Cool. But theoretically, when you're on a separate VLAN, you wouldn't want to be able to ping devices on your main network. So for example, we have a TrueNAS server, and look at that. We can ping it, we can access it. That's not what you want, or not what most people want in terms of VLAN. So we're going to want to block that off. So let's do that. So all that's done under network security, go into ACLs. It's not super intuitive. I just went in here and started creating rules, and I was wondering why they're not working and blah, blah, blah. That's because I was on gateway ACL. You're going to want to go into your router ACL or your switch ACL if you want to do it at that level, but make sure you're under that correct tab. Go to create rule, give it a name, block IoT from main. This is going to be a deny rule. It's enabled. We want it from network to network, meaning that everything coming from our IoT network, we want to deny to our regular main LAN network. Click apply. And just like that, when connecting back to our IoT network, we should no longer be able to show you we are connected. There's our 10.0.69 address. We should no longer be able to ping. And there we go. Blocked off from our main network, which is how 99% of people want VLANs to work. More network security, we go down into URL filtering. From here, you can specify specific URLs that you want to block. I have mixed feelings on this. One, yes, it's a good feature to have. You can say bad sites or something, deny on a specific network. So say I don't want my guests or IoT devices to access specific sites. You can enter them here. I mean, it's cool. It's a good feature to have. What I don't like is that TP-Link doesn't have kind of a general repository for noted blacklisted sites, that would be an excellent feature to have, to just be able to check a box saying, yeah, I want to use your repository for noted, bad sites, just to block them. There might be some other settings somewhere buried down in here that does something like that, but it would be super intuitive to have it under URL filtering. Attack defense, this is just a bunch of mega nerd network settings. Basically, this is saying block all suspicious activity from coming into my network, and that's something you really want to have in today's world, where just exposing your public IP just gets you flooded with millions of freaking DNS attacks or DDoS attacks and other crap. So leave all this on unless you know what you're doing and want to remove some of this. Transmission, this is where you're going to do all your NATing and routing. So under routing, you can do static routes. So traffic coming in, if you want to route it from one device to a new device, you can enter that here. If you want to route something coming into an entire interface, you can specify that here. NATing, pretty straightforward. So here you can do all your port forwarding. In a lot of cases, you're going to want to forward ports if you're exposing certain services. So this is where you would do it. You would come in, give it a name. Source IP would be like anything coming in from a certain interface. Specify the port, the destination IP and the destination port, TCP or UDP or both, and create. Pretty straightforward. Session limit, if you want to specify the max amount of sessions you can have within your network, you can do that here. Bandwidth control, this is a pretty cool feature. If you turn this on, you can create a rule and say, for example, on your IoT network or your guest network, you don't want someone connecting to that and sucking down all the bandwidth for your entire network. You can go in here and say, okay, well, for my IoT network or for a specific IP group, I'm sure you've seen them show up in a lot of these screens, so I'll talk about those in a second, but say for everybody on the IoT network, I want them to only have 2,000 kilobits per second up and 10,000 down. And you can specify this as shared or individual, meaning that shared is everybody on the entire IoT network. Everybody has to share this 2,000 up and 10,000 down. Or you can say each individual gets this. Everybody who's connected, you each get these maximum settings. So yeah, it's a cool feature to have if you just don't want certain devices or certain networks sucking up all your bandwidth. VPN. This is where I was extremely let down by the Omada ecosystem. There are basically two ways you can set up a VPN. There's site-to-site VPN and client-to-site VPN. Site-to-site is essentially what it sounds like. Having a VPN set up from one site to another, meaning that if you're a business and you have multiple physical locations and you want them to all act as its own LAN network, you can set up site-to-site VPNs and have everything talk. So yeah, it's an awesome feature. But for all of us home users, client-to-site VPN is what we want. This is your ability to go travel out in the world and just set up a VPN connection back to your home and act as if you're sitting in front of your computer in your house and have access to your entire LAN. It doesn't work. It just straight up client-to-site VPN doesn't work. I don't know if I'm just doing something wrong, but basically, so I created one to test it out and I'll show it to you. It's essentially what we just created right here. But when I go to export, it's going to give me a OpenVPN connection file with the certificate and everything, but there's no user access management anywhere on here for VPN. So while I have the connection profile, I don't have any authorization for users. So it just doesn't make sense as a client-to-site VPN. So I don't know if I'm missing something, but it just doesn't work. Anyway, let's move on. So profiles. Let's talk about groups first. This is where, remember I said we'll talk about IP groups. this is where you can create them. So a group is essentially an alias, and you can specify a large group of users by their IPs, or you can do it by MAC addresses. So if you have a group of devices, say all your children's devices, you can go in here and say, kids devices. You can add them specifically here, or you can add from client list, which is pretty cool. So you can scroll through all the clients connected and kind of check them off and say, yeah, these are the devices I want to add. So then once you do that, you'll have a group here, and you can use that when you're specifying rules and ACLs down the line. So pretty cool feature. Time range, this potentially has the ability to be cool. I was hoping there were more places to use this in terms of blocking off specific groups for a specific time range, but the only place I really saw that was, guys, I saw this, I swear. Okay, so in wireless networks. So for example, if I only want this IoT network to work during a specific time range, here you can see I now have my weekend time range here. So that's one place that I guess would be kind of cool to just shut off a device for a time range, but I was hoping there would be a more intuitive way to kind of block specific users for a specific time frame. Authentication, this is just basic authentication stuff depending on what protocol you want to use, blah, blah, blah. Services, so you have a whole bunch of stuff here. Dynamic DNS, but they have specific ones here. So dynamic DNS, no IP is one that I've used before. You can specify your username and password, and it'll automatically update your public IP on your DNS site. So cool feature to have. I don't know what this is. UPnP, this is something that is off by default, which is good. But a lot of people like using UPnP. It makes it easy for specific devices to connect to the outside world because it allows them to automatically open the ports that they need. Some people don't like devices being able to open ports that they need automatically. So if you don't like that, leave UPnP off. If you want that feature, turn it on. SSH, if you want to be able to SSH in. Reboot schedule, if you want to reboot devices on a schedule. I guess that would be good for business. I don't really care about that. PoE schedule, I don't really know what that is. Here you can export a bunch of stuff. So don't know why export data is in services, but there it is. If you want to export all your devices, all your clients, your logs, inside voucher codes. Okay, cool. Moving on, controller. Here's where you can specify options for your controller, specific fallback IP address in case something happens. If you want to set up a mail server to where it can send emails, you can do that. HTTPS certificate, if you want to import your own, I guess you can do that. Access configuration, all that's down here. Cloud access, we don't have this set up, but you can do it if you want to have cloud access for your system. Set it up here. Maintenance, basic stuff, backup and restore, hardware controller if you want to reboot it. Upgrades are done here. So data backups, by default on settings only, you can change this to retain backup data from a year ago if you want. Then you can go in here and restore from a backup file if you want to do that. Set that up here. Migration, site migration, so if you want to move one controller to another site, you can do that. Obviously we're one site home user, so that doesn't matter. Same with controllers, moving your controllers. This would be an entire site migration. This would be just migrating your controller. And auto backup. This will do auto backup, and now saying it's only available when powered by a PoE device and a storage device is connected to its USB port. We don't have one. I probably should have plugged one in to test that, but I didn't, so I apologize. All right, that is the Omada ecosystem as a whole. What are my final thoughts on it? I like it. Obviously, it's not perfect, but I think this is an extreme step up from where we are in terms of most consumer or user home network setups. I can't talk to how it compares directly to Unify, I've heard they are extremely similar, not only in their appearance, but how they perform. So I've never used Unify, so I can't talk to that. I would recommend this to any basic user who wants an easy physical setup in their home network. If they want multiple access points, if they want multiple switches for a lot of devices, and you just want it to be easy plug and play and have access to everything, I would recommend the Omada line 100%. For extreme power users that care more about all the features you can get in your home network and don't necessarily care about all the statistics and the pretty GUI and all the plug and play, easily connected and configurable devices, I would recommend doing your own custom setup with something like pfSense, which is what I personally run, but that would be the small minority. In terms of businesses, I can't really say that I recommend it or I don't recommend it because I don't know how this fares in terms of a big business. I mean, I'm running this in a home. I don't have multiple sites or hundreds of clients that I need to manage. So I'd be curious, anybody out there who has deployed something like this in a business where you have a bunch of clients or multiple sites, how is the Omada line working for you? I'd be curious to know. But that's it. If I had any recommendations for TP-Link, I would say to clean up some of the visual bugs, like when you click on a device or something, it completely just cuts off this page. I feel like it should be responsive and kind of slide over so you're not missing data. Anyway, yeah, the GUI itself looks good. There are a couple of visual bugs that they need to fix. For VLANs, I would personally recommend when you set up a new VLAN or interface to have it blocked off by default. The main one that they really need to look at is the VPNs. Client-to-site VPNs is something that I use a lot for my home network running pfSense, but it doesn't seem to either A, not work at all on here, or I'm just completely missing something for how to connect. But anyway, it just needs to be more intuitive, I think. So overall, a great system. Would recommend it to almost everybody. But be curious, what are you running out there? Are you running an Omada setup? Do you have any of these Omada devices anywhere in your home network? Or are you thinking about upgrading? Let me know down in the comments any network comments or questions that you have, and hopefully I can address them. But that is it for today. If you like the video, drop a like below. If you like content like this, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.